It all kicked off on a quiet Tuesday morning when I got back from a long weekend road trip. Taped to my front door with almost surgical precision was a crisp, overly formal envelope. The HOA letterhead was so bold it practically screamed its authority at me before I even opened it. Inside in big, urgent letters, HOA notice, violation, unsightly object on property. I stopped, squinted up at the corner of my roof, and there it was, a small gray satellite dish sitting quietly near the chimney, like a timid bird. It had been there for almost a year, minding its own business, but now, apparently, it was a crime so heinous the HOA felt compelled to slap a threatening note on my door like I was cooking meth in the basement. The violation was laid out in dramatic legalese. Your property has been flagged for a civil technological obstruction in violation of Community Aesthetic Ordinance 7.12c. I couldn't help but chuckle at technological obstruction, as if my little dish was some alien monstrosity blasting tacky VY across the cul-de-sac. The fine. Due Law 325, with a weekly escalation and a demand to remove it within 10 business days. No appeal, no discussion, just a royal decree. I knew exactly who was behind this, Linda. Not just any Linda, but Linda with a clipboard, the self-proclaimed guardian of suburban perfection and HOA president. She always wore a beige tracksuit and a glare that said, "I'll report you to the city faster than you can blink." She'd had it out for me ever since I skipped the neighborhood holiday wreath contest last December. While everyone else bowed to her HOA gospel, I was the rebel who hung a Batman ornament on my tree instead of a candy cane bough. From then on, she prowled our street like a hawk with a mission, hunting for violations. She'd once cited my neighbor for improper curtain symmetry, I'm not kidding. Later that day, I spotted her at the end of her driveway, sunglasses on, coffee mug in hand emblazoned with, "Don't mess with the HOA," staring at my house with the smug grin of a mall cop who'd just nabbed a kid with a candy bar. "You planning to take that thing down?" she called out as I got out of my car, her tone dripping with fake casualness. "Before it causes more trouble?" "Trouble," she said, like she was negotiating a ceasefire. I asked calmly if she'd explain the violation, since no one else had complained in a year. She smirked. "It's just ugly. Lowers property values. You don't want to be that neighbor, do you?" The way she hissed, "that neighbor," sent a shiver down my spine. This wasn't about looks, it was about power, control, and her reign over lawns and lives. I didn't argue. Not yet. Instead, I went inside, made coffee, and dug into my files. That dish wasn't just some random satellite, it was part of a secure, government-contracted system installed by a licensed tech with permits in federal compliance under the Over-the-Air Reception de VYCES ordered rule. That rule explicitly bans HOAs from messing with satellite dishes under 1 meter on private property. I'd signed an NDA and had clearance docs because my job involved secure data transmissions. In short, Linda had just picked a fight with a federally protected piece of tech and she had no clue. I decided to bide my time, letting her dig her own hole one memo at a time. Over the next few days, she doubled down. Another letter arrived, this one in color, with a photo of my dish snapped from the sidewalk, a red circle around it like a tabloid Bigfoot sighting. She sent a group email to the HOA board, security threat or eyesore. You decide. It was so over the top I nearly spat out my coffee. One neighbor said she told them I might be working with a foreign satellite provider. Another heard I was broadcasting illegal signals like I had a super VY lane lair in my attic. The paranoia spread like wildfire. I even caught 2 HOA members across the street peering at my roof with binoculars, like something out of a spy flick. Still, I kept quiet. I left the dish up, waved at Linda every morning, and smiled because what she didn't know, and what I was prepping behind the scenes, was about to turn this HOA drama into neighborhood legend. The local board didn't grasp the federal protections. Linda didn't understand the law. And no one was ready for my next move. She wanted a war over aesthetics? She was about to learn what happens when you mess with someone holding a federal trump card. A few days later, the gossip hit fever pitch. I opened my email to find a message titled Urgent Concern. HOA safety meeting called. From Linda herself. The text oozed passive-aggressive urgency, warning of a potential threat, from a non-approved technological installation. She'd capitalized threat, like it was some secret government code. The meeting was set for Saturday at the community clubhouse, strongly encouraged to protect our neighborhood's integrity and safety. It'd be funny if she hadn't already upped the crazy. That afternoon, neighbors started approaching me with weird looks. One asked if I worked for the Russian government. Another said Linda claimed my dish could mess with airline signals or even the weather radar. It was sci-fi nonsense. I half expected her to say I was launching drones. I asked my neighbor Paul where he'd heard this. Linda stopped by this morning, he said. She was handing out flyers. Said your dish might be leaking radiation. He whispered radiation like it might knock his teeth out. I snagged one of her flyers, a black and white, home-printed disaster with a blurry pic of my dish under the headline, "Are we safe in our own neighborhood?" It listed facts about satellite dangers, citing a 2007 blog and a dead conspiracy forum link. She'd added a clip art hazard symbol and a fake quote. Property values dropped 14 Fantram when exposed to high-frequency signal pollution. Dr. Shan Institute of Signal Ethics. I googled it. No such person existed. On Friday, I caught her creeping near my lawn with a measuring tape and flashlight, like she was on a stealth mission. Need something? I asked, barely hiding a grin. She jumped, clutching her clipboard like a shield. Just confirming placement, she said coolly. We can verify structural encroachments and VY violations. I pointed at my driveway. If you're measuring, there's a hairline crack there for 2 years. Should I find myself for emotional distress? She didn't laugh, shocker. Saturday's meeting was a budget CIA operation. Linda had a projector and a trifold board labeled satellite surveillance in our streets, an ominous red marker. About 15 neighbors showed up, mostly curious. She launched into her presentation with the GROVY of someone revealing nuclear secrets. We're facing an unprecedented breach of community aesthetics, she declared, pacing like a TED Talk reject. But more than that, we must consider national security implications. She clicked to a grainy shot of my dish. Notice the angle, the exposure, the ominous shimmer. What's it pointing at? Who knows? My favorite part? Her pie chart on possible data leaks, with sections for personal info, weather control, and unknown active VY. When board member Tom asked what unknown active VY meant, she didn't flinch. It's classified by definition, she said, but we can assume it's dangerous. I nearly choked holding back laughter. Then came her grand finale. A petition to ban all non-HOA-approved satellite gear. She passed around her clipboard. Some hesitated, others smirked, but a few signed. Fear's a hell of a motivator, especially when it's delivered by a tracksuit tyrant. That night, Tom level-headed Tom called me. Off the record, he said. Linda's telling people you're a secret operative. I sighed. Would it help if I said I just work in secure comms and the dish is federally protected? He laughed. Might, but she's on a rampage. Says she might call Homeland Security by Monday. Things escalated again. Linda hand-delivered a final warning notice claiming credible reports of unauthorized transmissions. We cannot risk espionage. It read like I was chatting with Area 51 from my couch. I flipped it over, scribbled, contact the FCC and file a complaint if you're serious. False reports are a felony. Good luck. And dropped it in her mailbox. By now she'd recruited a trio of retirees, her Lindettes, who'd started tailing me on my walks, one with a notepad. I heard her mutter, "He's on his 3rd lap today." I waved. Ladies, should I report myself for cardio violations? No response, just scribbling. My neighborhood had turned into a live-action comedy, and Linda was directing it like a low-budget blockbuster. But then she made her fatal mistake. She filed an incident report with a local news station, claiming our community was at risk from rogue tech installations, and that authorities were being stonewalled. The station didn't run it, but they called me. I explained, showed my docs, and mentioned Odert. Suddenly they were interested, but not in Linda's favor. The reporter asked if I'd share my side. I grinned. Sure, but let's wait. She's not done embarrassing herself yet. And I was right. 3 days after her clubhouse circus, an unmarked white SUV rolled into the neighborhood and parked across from my house. 2 men stepped out, dark slacks, polos, earpiece as casual but official. One carried a small black case. Linda was waiting, arms folded, radiating smug triumph like she'd summoned the FBI. She waved them over and launched into a hushed, frantic rant, pointing at my dish. I watched from my Ing room, sipping coffee like it was a matinee show. 15 minutes in, one agent broke off and crossed to my door. I opened it before he knocked. "Mr. Carter?" he asked. I nodded. He introduced himself and his partner, field agents from the Department of Communications Infrastructure Oversight. Yep, that's real. They were here because Linda had filed a federal complaint, alleging unauthorized data uplinks and foreign interference protocols. I almost laughed, but he was all business. She says you're operating non-compliant telecom equipment. Mind if we check? Not at all, I said, stepping aside. I've been waiting for this. I led them to the dish and handed over my paperwork, permits, certification, and the Kikera Department of Defense letter confirming it was part of a secure, high-trust data relay network I maintained as a subcontractor. The agent's eyebrows twitched. Tier 2 clearance system? Encrypted uplink passive reception, I said. Fully odored and FCC compliant. Installed by Secure Horizon Tech, Federal Registry certified. He nodded, flipping through the docs. She filed this as a security threat, he asked. I smirked. Cyber-terrorism, apparently. The second agent joined us, jaw tight. She gave us a homemade dossier, he said. Google Earth screenshots, phone pics, a hand-drawn data contamination radius map. I snorted. She also said it might be talking to sky-based intelligence units, he added. I think she means satellites, I offered. He nodded. She used electromagnetic poisoning twice. They exchanged a look, not impressed. Thanks, Mr. Carter, one said. We'll verify your setup's legality. You're clear. Then the fun part. They walked back to Linda. I caught snippets as they dismantled her fantasy, unsubstantiated claim. No breach. Federal code protects it. Misuse of federal resources. Her face went from smug to stunned to furious. As they drove off, she hissed at me, this isn't over. Oh, it's over, I shot back. Misusing a federal agency to harass someone? That's a violation. Look it up. Her jaw clenched. She stormed inside, slamming her door so hard it triggered a car alarm. That evening, HOA board member Sarah emailed me. She wasn't a Linda fan, most of the board just tolerated her for the paperwork. We need to talk about Linda's behavior, she wrote. She's dragging us into something we didn't sign up for. Cracks were forming. The agent's report didn't just clear Mike, documented Linda's false claims against a government-sanctioned setup. It was public record, and someone, not me, sent it to the board. It shredded her accusations and suggested the HOA rethink its processes to avoid future federal misuse. By Thursday, rumors swirled of a special board session, not about me, but Linda. Her patrols stopped. The flyers vanished. Even her Lindettes quit whispering. The storm had shifted and I was just warming up. The next HOA meeting was a circus. Neighbors brought lawn chairs, popcorn, and iced coffees like it was a courtroom drama premiere. Linda opened with a tight smile. I'd like to address recent misunderstandings about satellite equipment and safety, she said, painting herself as a selfless hero who'd bravely raised the alarm. My actions came from care, she cooed. If I hadn't asked questions, who would? A few nodded until HOA President Mike cleared his throat. We appreciate vigilance, he said, exhausted, but there are rules. Linda cut in. The issue escalated because our bylaws don't cover military-grade tech in a residential zone. She expected applause. None came. I stood holding a folder. I can clear this up, I said, handing out packets, one to Mike, one to Sarah, and one to Linda. Tap to page 4. The dish is protected by the FCC's odor rule, I told the room. Homeowners can install satellite gear on private property without HOA interference per federal law. Page 2, my permit. Page 3, verification from the Department of Communications. Page 4, I eyed Linda, details penalties for false federal claims. Silence. Linda flipped through her packet, stammering, I never said threat. I just expressed concern. Nope, Sarah cut in, holding up Linda's report. You wrote, national security breach with arrows. Snickers spread. I stayed calm. I waited to respond, but since Linda made this a public campaign, mails, flyers, license fair, you hear the truth. Linda tried a last gasp. Even if it's legal, it's not aesthetically compatible. Mike blinked. You mean it's ugly? She faltered. It disrupts our architectural flow. That's not a thing, someone muttered. Tom, a quiet board member, spoke up. We almost got a federal citation because you didn't like how it looked. Linda snapped, I was protecting us. Sarah raised an eyebrow. From what, Wi-Fi? Laughter erupted. Mike moved to dismiss my violation, issue an apology, and revow complaint protocols. Sarah added and banned hand-drawn conspiracy maps. It passed unanimously. Linda stood, gripping her folder, muttered no comment, and sat, her power fading like mist. Neighbors left chuckling, patting my back. Linda packed up and stormed out. I heard her mutter about a lawyer. Good, because I was about to get one too. A week after the Great Dish debacle, a certified letter arrived from the law office of Tate Va Lowell, Linda's intent to sue me for emotional distress and reputational harm. She claimed my hostile response to her reasonable concerns caused public embarrassment and stress, demanding due law $7,500 for community trust restoration. I get this, stress yoga therapy. I framed it. My lawyer, a pro in compliance and harassment from my firm, drafted a response denying her claims and countering with her false federal statements and HOA bylaw violations. We also requested HOA arbitration, hinting at their liability in Linda's vendetta. The HOA didn't dismiss it. An emergency subcommittee meeting was called, and their insurance provider started asking why federal complaints were filed without proof. They audited 18 months of violations, 73 from Linda, 94 fan tram of the total, mini baseless. She turned the HOA into her personal hit squad. When the findings leaked, neighbors raged. The board scrambled, retracting her citations. Linda's lawsuit was withdrawn, but my lawyer sent it to the State Ethics Board for defamation, re-VYEW. By month's end, she faced a vote of no confidence. The meeting moved to the middle school gym standing room only. Linda tried bribing board members with muffins and vague promises, but Tom recorded her. Her removal passed 5-1. She stormed out, put her house up for sale, and faded her reign over, her karma just beginning. Linda tried one last move, getting me fired. HR got an anonymous letter, peer Linda accusing me of unauthorized uplinks via my dish. My boss laughed it off, but the Department of Defense, CC'd by Linda, investigated her instead. My dish's motion logs caught her trespassing on my roof twice. I sent the EVY-DNK to the HOA and local authorities. Linda got a stern warning, no more false reports or face charges. Her house fell apart, weeds, peeling paint, a tilted mailbox. The HOA, once her weapon, cited her relentlessly. Her open house flopped after a savage pamphlet spread, and she couldn't sell. She retreated, blinds shut, a ghost of her former self. The neighborhood rewrote the bylaws fair, transparent, with a Linda clause banning ousted abusers from returning. At a Stars and Signals event, my dish Linda's nemesis relayed a public broadcast. She reportedly unplugged her TV in a rage. 3 weeks later, she sold quietly, Dula $18,000 under asking, and vanished. Her legacy? A tale of a woman who fought a dish and lost everything, a signal reminder that karma, like tech, connects us all.